The Holy Gospel according to Matthew, the 6th chapter. Glory to you, O Lord. Beware of practicing your piety before others in order to be seen by them, for then you have no reward from your Father in heaven. So whenever you give alms, do not sound a trumpet before you, as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, so that they may be praised by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward. But when you give alms, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your alms may be done in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And whenever you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, so that they may be seen by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward. But whenever you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And whenever you fast, do not look dismal like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces so as to show others that they are fasting. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that your fasting may be seen not by others, but by your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume, and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise you, O Christ.
You may be seated. This year, during our Lenten journey at midweeks, we will explore a series of ideas tied to one central theme: giving it up. I'm sure that many of you have given something up for Lent in the past. Chocolate is a big loser during Lent, at least for the first few weeks. And I'm sure the stock prices plummet for Hershey and Friends, as well as the Coca-Cola bottling company. Giving something up like meat on Fridays, as many of our Catholic brothers and sisters do, is a noble undertaking. And I do like a good fish sandwich. Our weekly undertakings will be a bit more challenging, perhaps, but I hope you will find them thought-provoking and energizing for your faith. Over the coming weeks, we will talk about, learn about, hear about giving up control, expectations, superiority, enemies, and our lives. Each week, our seminarian preachers will bring messages of conviction and yet hope. That's our rhythm as Lutherans, law and gospel. Holding up the mirror to our lives and asking the Spirit to help us reflect on our lives, our actions, our being, to seek after the one in whom we are perfected, in whose name we are marked on our foreheads this night with ashes. Tonight, I'd like to show you a movie clip. It's from a movie that is still shown in film schools and still talked about as being one of the darkest films ever made, and yet one that teaches the viewer an abundance of lessons. Oskar Schindler was a German industrialist during World War II. He ran a factory that made ammunition for the German war effort. Because most of the men were off at war, Schindler received permission to use Jewish concentration camp inmates as forced laborers in his factory. These workers, men, women, and children, were spared from death in order to go to the factory every day to work making ammunition. Schindler's story was made famous in the 1993 movie Schindler's List. Something unexpected happened to Oskar Schindler in the factory during the war. He began to get to know the workers. And as he got to know them, as he built relationships with them, his heart was changed. He began to care about them. He began to feel responsible for them. And in an interview after the war, he said, "I knew the people who worked for me. When you know people, You have to behave towards them like human beings. And so every week, Schindler would ask the German concentration camp to send him a larger and larger number of workers. And every week, the number of workers that hit the factory floor, the number of people on his list grew longer and longer. He did this not because he needed the extra laborers, but because he was trying to save their lives. In the end, almost 1,200 people were saved because of his work, because they found themselves on Schindler's list. Watch the clip. It's just a couple minutes long. The inscription on the ring says, translated, "Saving one saves the world entire." It's powerful. Schindler knew that he could have done more. So do we, right? But grace says love is enough. In this scene from near the end of the movie, Schindler, the man who began as the entrepreneur, who simply saw the forced laborers as a commodity to be taken advantage of, who learned to turn from his hate and toward love, this one who once provided grace to the workers so that 1,100 might be saved, gave them what they needed to live. This man now receives his own much-needed grace from the workers who give him a letter of passage and the inscribed golden ring. Schindler gave up everything in his power to save the lives of the prisoners he came to love. So how do we connect the dots between Schindler, the Jews he saved, and Ash Wednesday? Well, tonight we remember that we all will die. It's necessary for the resurrection. But there is so much more we could do. But grace says to you tonight that love is enough. It is not our doing that earns us this great love, but instead it is our God who does all that God can to save you. Lent is our time to reflect on our lives and listen for God's nudging, to turn away from the things that tear us down and turn toward those things that give us hope. It's appropriate that on Valentine's Day, a holiday of love, a day named for St. Valentine, who gave up everything, including his life, out of great love for God, a day filled with flowers, chocolates, and fancy greeting cards, that we are gathered together in this place to hear the ultimate message of love, the greatest love story ever told. We receive ashes on our heads to remind us that our very existence, our lives, all that we are is dust, and to dust it shall return. And that it is only through God's love that we are saved. It is the saving one who saves the world entire. May we embrace the gift of Lent and reflect on that saving one who saves the world, and give thanks to God for the great gift of love that we have received in Christ Jesus. Amen.